Scientists installed a camera in James' coffin for research purposes. When they looked recording the video, everyone was shocked. James happened to be from a rich family. His father was a professor in this field, real estate, who also loved to collect ancient artifacts that cost a lot for black. His mother's market was one of the best surgeons in the country. Although he had James everything was necessary, he was a humble man. He was an honest man who played his role to make the world a better, safer and happier place. When James turned 18, his mother died. Cancer left them and their father alone. Some years later, his father remarried a beautiful woman who had a daughter named Catherine from a previous marriage. After the wedding, James decided to leave. He followed in his father's footsteps and worked in real estate and collecting artifacts. He quickly achieved success in these endeavors, show business features that inherited from his father. Unfortunately, James' father passed away after a short illness. He left the young man alone, unhappy and lost. Fortunately, he had his own half-sister and stepmother. James had doubts about trusting them for a while, but in many cases they showed themselves love, sacrificing their time and resources for. James was happy and relieved, so he finally let them into his heart and, in his opinion, one of the best decisions in this field was his life. -1 month after my father's death, James returned to his parents' house and felt empty. The guilty because he lived in another city, while his parents' house was empty. That's why he decided to return home again. In the last few months, the city has seen a lot of changes. Thanks to James, schools and roads were rebuilt, as well as built James Hospital. Also gave less financial aid to the rich people and provided scholarships. Many children were all happy for that young man, and blessed him every day. This work continued until one morning. The residents did not wake up with this shocking news when James died. His half-sister Catherine came to visit him and found her lifeless body lying helplessly on the floor. Despite that he felt that he was dead, he immediately took her to the hospital, hoping that her intuition had failed her. Unfortunately, it was not like that. Despite their best efforts, the doctors could not confirm that James was indeed dead. Determine the cause of his death. They explained Catherine's condition and proposed an autopsy. To get the final answer at the very last moment, Catherine remembered her brother. I had heart problems, albeit mildly. He then provided the medical records, in which James was diagnosed with problems with my heart, and explained that, despite this fact for which he was taking medicine, his illness may have been the cause of his death. That's why he felt there was no need for an autopsy. In addition, Catherine knew that her brother he was against the autopsy. He believed that they violated the principle of human dignity, so he was determined not to let them desecrate his dear brother's beliefs. Before Catherine ordered him to be released from the hospital, so that her brother's body could be kept in the morgue. He couldn't find himself, until he figured out how to organize Catherine's funeral all night. Places he wanted to honor his brother one last time, so I went online to investigate how to do this. That's when I came across an article. It was an article about scientists who examined the bodies of the dead. Before drawing conclusions, they observed for a year behind them. Catherine knew that scientific research. This is the best way to honor the memory of her deceased. A brother eager to change the world for the better. That night, Catherine contacted the scientists and he told them that they can use his brother for your research. They sent him to sign. He has the necessary documents and promised to pay the solid compensation that Catherine had promised. The local orphanage early the next morning, the day Catherine arranged her brother's funeral, the church was overcrowded. It showed how people loved James so much. Before you leave it, the body in the coffin, scientists attached a camera to the walls. The coffin could record and transmit. They streamed the footage directly to their computers for a year until the battery dies. To ensuring regular updates, they set the recording time to 7 p.m. The funeral ceremony was held and continued for about an hour. At the end of the ceremony, everyone was swollen with tears in her eyes. After the funeral, Catherine went to her brother's house, where she now had to start. They lived meanwhile. The scientists were looking forward to 7 o'clock in the afternoon, when the camera would start shooting the first video. The frames all gathered around the page and were waiting to see what will be engraved on it. As soon as the hour taps 7, the camera starts live streaming. A few seconds after watching, in the video, the scientists exclaimed in surprise. What they saw was inexplicable. He made a copy of the video and hurried to leave the lab before going to the police station. None of them had ever witnessed such a terrifying incident. The next day, around noon, Catherine was at her brother's house, enjoying a glass of his suddenly expensive tequila. He heard the sound of the siren in the distance and before him, he managed to react. he entered the yard in front of his house by car. The police van jumped nervously and rushed to meet them. "Hello, officer," Catherine greeted and pretended to smile even a child could understand. "We are here because," one of the officers said. "A lady, Catherine." "Yes, I am. How can I help?" Nervous, the girl answered, and her hands started shaking and she quickly hid them behind her head. Even before how can the police explain why they came to their senses. On the way home, Catherine began to act suspiciously. "What are you doing here? Do you have a warrant to search?" asked the girl. Then he ran to the door and opened his arms, not letting the police in, even though it was still there. He didn't try to get in. "I know my rights. There's nothing here," he continued to scream. What happened next shocked him. The policeman told Catherine that they are looking for him because they suspect he has something to do with his death. Brother, with these words, Catherine's heart jumped, and she immediately turned pale. Glass cup, which he was holding in his hands, came out of him and broke into hundreds of pieces. At that moment he understood that there was no point in lying and pretending. "So I decided to confess, hoping it was true. He will set him free." He admitted that was his intention. It was never part of taking your brother's life. All what he needed were valuable artifacts, which he kept. He admitted that he had taken drugs, sleeping pills in his coffee, and searched the whole house for artifacts, but found nothing. When he returned to James's room and tried to threaten him into telling you where the artifacts were, it turned out that he was not breathing anymore. Knowing that he would be accused of murder, he made up a story about it that James has a heart disease, and even showed that doctors confirm with fake documents his statement. And to further cover my tracks, he declined an autopsy and instead gave James to scientists to conduct research. "I didn't want to kill him. It was wrong," he pleaded Catherine, but just when she thought it couldn't get any worse, it happened something that shook him to the core. The passenger door of the police car suddenly opened, and James came out to meet his sister, who was shaking uncontrollably. Catherine was shocked, unable to move or even blink. The sleeping pills wore off and he woke up. I was horrified to discover what was in the coffin. Scientists immediately went to the police station and he explained the situation. Together with the police, James's coffin was dug up and it was found that he is alive and trying to breathe. Then they delivered him to the hospital and his condition was stabilized. It turns out that James was the time to suspect his half-sister. Therefore, there are antiquities taken to storage and hidden. Catherine begged her brother to stop the affair, but he knew that he did not deserve mercy. As a result, he appeared in court and was sentenced to prison. Dear viewers, what do you think about it? That James complained about his step-sister? Please write in the comments. And if you like this video, like it and subscribe to our channel. Bye.